Welcome to a special rock and roll overtime every time edition with yours truly Saturday Sunday Sabbath with yours truly Rainbow Dragon, aka independent aspie artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical, theoretical, analyst, and theorist, grateful, thankful that my rent's paid, electricity bills paid, got food and coffee, challenging Donald Trump to a boxing match. I've been challenging Donald Trump to a boxing match on the Canadian-US border for some time now, for some years. Ever since the imposition of tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel. Rock and roll overtime every time, yours truly. Gonna sing some of that for the farmers, LOV, sending some LOV, love. To the firefighters, truckers, butchers, nurses, those, of course, who doing some of that good cooking, cleaning, construction workers, those who do a little bit of sandwich across the North American civilizational complex, making up some of that good fast food. I'm a fan. I always admire how they can. I wouldn't last a day in the fast food industry preparing some of those cheeseburgers, those hamburgers, that with that lettuce, and of course all the preparation of the fast food. And I do my geopolitics. Dancing is my favorite sport. Rock and roll and fitness, and rock and roll for the firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, all those involved in the truckers on the road, getting up for the railroads, and those public workers, LOV, please, the color of the heart. Color of the heart from this independent aspie artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical, theoretical, analyst, and theorist to please, NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA, National Basketball Association, MLB, please, reduce the ticket costs across North America by 44.5%, 44.5%. I do estimate that the costs need to be reduced by about 44.5%. That is my estimated reduction of the cost, which need to be done. Of course, the reduction of the cost by 44%. That's my estimation, 44%, 44.9% to be precise and exact. And yours truly is here in the underground room office in Temple. Grateful, thankful, my rent's paid, electricity bills paid. Although financially struggling, I'm an artist, athlete, and independent geopolitical philosopher and thinker, and of course geopolitics 24/7 with his aspect, meaning that I have that HFA, high functioning autism, and that is not a mental illness. This is a neurological mental divergent condition which makes me predisposed to obsessive interest, and it's 24/7 study the analysis of geopolitics. Rock and roll 24/7 geopolitics. And of course today's main event of this weekend going into the next week is of course the re-election of Donald Trump, which I'm challenging. I have started challenging Donald Trump to a boxing match on the Canadian-US border back in, of course, 2018, when Donald Trump imposed tariffs on the Canadian aluminum and steel industry. And of course, my anonymous friend gifted me the greatest ever that I had in recent memory, because with that is a little bit retrograde amnesia, is a little bit more difficult to access those memories from more than 7, 8, 9 years ago, but nonetheless about 5, 6 years ago, I was gifted a red, my favorite color, gloves, and I'll be working out, exercising them in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead. And before the inauguration, let's get on that 25th of December, Dragon versus Trump on the Canadian-US border to build. And if I will to build something in the structures is the Forgotten Goddess Temple, forgotten. G-O-D-D-S-S, Goddess Temple, and I'm crediting laying the foundation with trillions of kisses got by the trillions, credited from the Forgotten Goddess. And if you want any kisses, tickles, and hugs, I got that plenty with that rock and roll for the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, all those in those truckers on the lanes. Be careful, get back home safe on the firefighters, LOV. Butchers and the bakers and the nurses and the electricians and the plumbers. Got those carpenters up in the scaffolds. Got the restoration, gotta work it up and down. Hey, no need to frown. I ain't been up and depressed. I done been up and down, up and depressed and suicidal. Now see me smiling. I've been through hell and back. I paid my rent, and that's a fact. I've been hell and back. I paid my rent, and that's a fact. I would have been that hell and back. I paid my rent, and that's a fact. And put a little bit of honey. I got a little bit of honey left, Canada, and gonna sip a little bit of this coffee and meditate on the North American civilizational complex. And my work is 24/7, of course, geopolitics, sports, dancing, and philosophy with it. Rock and roll. I am an artist, financially struggling, but I'm able to go online now. I gotta give a shout out, salutation to Hydro-Quebec, workers of Hydro-Quebec here in the Quebec and Rebel Province, Canada. This North American, gotta give some LOV to the workers now on the field. LOV to the Hydro-Quebec workers of the past who built those 63 dams, so that myself included, you, all of us, 10 million Quebecers, myself included, and our electricity, which is clean, zero pollution, zero emission, goes all the way to 6 states now, all the way to Manhattan Island. A fifth, 20% of Manhattan Island receives clean, zero pollution, zero emission energy from Hydro-Quebec, the dams, theoretical dams, which were built during the more than 50 years in the 20th century and recently opened last year on the Laramie complex through 3 new hydroelectric dams. So I'm always a fan of that, and I got the light above my head and all the lights doing in Quebec all the way to 5 states. I believe 6 states now, all the way to Manhattan, come from Hydro-Quebec. So it's something that I meditate as a geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist on the philosophy. And I presented my thesis, you know, back in 2023, the privilege of civilization, that was my thesis. The privilege of civilization, that was my thesis. The privilege of civilization, and that's what I got to get doing with that. And I'm going to continue discussing it in the coming days ahead. And tomorrow we're going to commemorate that 11/11, of course, November armistice. So to our vets, LOV, and we got to play that defense. My initiatives, protocols, and initiatives, of course, part of my ongoing dream. The dream is the dancing goddess in the dragon kingdom. My dream for the North American collective civilizational complex is strictly merely for rebirth, defense, rebirth, defense, rebirth, defense, and rebirth and defense. So this androgynous pansexual rainbow dragon, aka, you know, priestess of the GODDSS, I will to build the forgotten goddess temple. One thing I want to build before I'm gone off those dust. I ashes turn to dust, bury me with Papa Crowley, a third of me up in New Jersey, a third of me out in the pyramids, the city of the pyramids, and of course a third of me Mount Royal, my second home. So that's a third, but I will to build on the Canadian-US border maybe a big complex, and of course on Mount Royal, the House of the Dragon, pyramid, let's call it simple, I don't need much, but the House of the Dragon in parallel to the Forgotten Goddess Temple, GODDSS, I do say, and of course the goddess is mentioned in the Bible. I'm not going to go into Bible mysteries because I am a mystic as well. Not only a geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist and philosopher, an artist, athlete, but also a mystic who, of course, is that wannabe Thelemite, wannabe non-sectarian Thelemite. I do say the word goddess because there's mysteries I don't know. There's mysteries I don't know. I do say the word goddess, GODDSS. You know, I do. Somebody say God bless the other day, and I was like, God is blessed, and kind of looked at each other, kind of strange, didn't know what to react. I'm like, no problem, I understand. They were trying to figure it out. How come I said the word goddess? Because some people are not used to say, you know, when you say God bless, I say goddess. GODDS says bless as well, because I played that tango. It takes two to tango dancing, and that's what I want to build. Forgotten Goddess Temple before I depart, and I'm laying the foundations with trillions of kisses. Play that black and white or rainbow. Trillions of kisses. Kisses I got created from the Forgotten Goddess. 718 trillions of kisses. A trillion is 1,000 billion. A billion has 9 zeros. That's so many kisses that I got with push-ups and tickles and a little bit of boxing. Donald Trump first. I'm going to box Donald Trump first. I'm looking forward to that fight. Give some charity, please. I call it a heart right here. Going online, you know, unscripted, unregulated, in a freestyle manner as an Aspie thinker. And you know, it's that HFA, so I'm going to repeat things sometimes twice, 3 times due to my condition, neurological mental divergent condition known as Asperger's. So being HFA, I'm an HFA myself, high functioning autistic. I'm part of a tiny minority, of course. And I got to give a shout out to Aspie World, the channel, YouTube channel, Aspie World. I'm going to give a shout out to Aspie World. Thank you. You know, it's 100%. I have about 93 of the symptoms, you know, and we have to work on the Asperger symptoms when we interact with fellow non-Aspies who are, of course, non-neurodivergent like ourselves, and be aware that we're divergent or we're part of a minority. 0.44%, less than 0.44%, so not even 1%, not even half of a percent, so that's less than 1 out of 300, less than 1 out of 300, less than 1 out of 300 people have Asperger's like myself. So being on the spectrum, I have my strengths, and it's with yours truly, you know, if you're an Aspie, that we have obsessive interests, and those obsessive interests preoccupy our time 24/7. It's a constant thing with most Aspies, and my trinity of obsessive interests is geopolitics. I'm a geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist, and I predicted what's happening now back in 2019, an international conflagration. Back in 2019, in October 2019, I predicted an international conflagration, aka World War III, in a general manner, not in an overall direct manner, but in a general non-detailed manner, but with several perspectives, and detail, of course, can be included in. But I predicted what's happening now in a general manner back in October 2019, and I got proof of work because I got the video where I created my own workout training program system, of which, of course, I've created to go hand in hand with such a scenario, a World War III scenario back in 2019, which I created back then, of course, to get it on the go. So it's a simple, effective, efficient workout training program system which requires no equipment, and of course it is super. I've been applying it. I've been doing more than 372 programs of that same system. Of course, I've completed more than 372, so I'm even close to 400 if I count those that I did, of course, in a semi-parallel manner in nature. And I encourage you all to work out, train, exercise. I cannot stress the importance of regular fitness, regular physical exercise, and here I am. on this November 10th. Grateful, thankful, and paid, and celebrating marking 5 years since I developed that workout training program system, and since I came to the conclusion based on my geopolitical theoretical analysis that humanity is again concorded and heading towards an international conflagration. And back then I have of course made and created a workout training program system to go hand in hand with a World War III scenario, and here I am. Survived COVID. COVID was like death, pestilence, and disease for me. COVID was like death, pestilence, and disease. COVID was like death, pestilence. I survived COVID in 2020, February 2020, March, February 2020. And of course, I got to get it on the go. And 7 years ago, I crossed Canada. That event made me turn off of being depressed and suicidal 7 years ago, marking that event, which completely changed my life, completely changed my life, and that's what changed my whole life. Dynamics in 2017, when of course we got to get it on the go, and I have been written a composition and of course more intellectual document, a call to action for a public-private partnership to mass finance across the collective North American civilization citizens, to mass finance tourism across North America, because that has worked wonders and miracles for yours truly. That has worked wonders and miracles for yours truly. That has truly worked wonders and miracles for yours truly. To gotta get it on the go with now. So I will to finance via public-private partnership, a public-private partnership, a PPP, a public-private partnership, the North American Collective Civilizational Complex. Pardon? Hey, so we gotta get it on the go. Oh yeah, I saw it was like a black ball, right?
Why didn't you pick it up? You were just looking at it?
I did pick it up.
No, I just picked it up. It's on the floor.
Oh, it fell back then, Betty.
Where'd you put it? It fell back from where? Don't tell me you put it on my shelf here. This is not a dumping ground.
No. It's a recyclable. It can be recycled. It can be recycled.
It's recyclable. It's foam.
Yeah, foam can be recycled.
No.
That one I touched. It's made out of plastic.
No.
Okay, I gotta double check because now we got different opinions, so we gotta double check for the practice to put into practice to do the best recycling methods. Anyways, gotta double check. You're right, Betty. Always good to double check. Always good to double check. So what I was saying back, of course, in 2019, I predicted an international conflagration back in, of course, on my analysis, which was, of course, deep and in-depth, because that's what I do. You wake up in the morning, Aspies, we have routines, and for many, many years, my routine is doing my solar salutation, my meditation, and then geopolitical theoretical analysis, and geopolitics is always constantly fluctuating. And now today, I'm going to say that is the re-election of Donald Trump, the election of Donald Trump. I would have voted Kamala. I would have definitely voted Kamala. But, I'm going to say to my brothers and sisters in the United States, because I was born in three times I was born in the USA post-76, twice as a man, once as a woman, because now you get that 50-50 play and a rainbow 50-50 being androgynous. But once I was born a woman, and twice I was born a man. Both times I was born a man, I served in the same U.S. Army, United States Army, 156 years apart, 156 years apart in different wars in the same army in the USA. So now we're going to play that defense in the 21st century Concordium. And of course, I have my propositions, and I'm a pro-labor and love universal revolutionary centrist. I will us to lay the foundations for the North American Collective Workers Party, 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 and we got to get that PPV for the North American Collective Workers Party to get in a centrist way. And please, I would have willed, of course, to be a billionaire. I would have given 10%. I would have had 44 billion. I would have taken from the Donald Trump's election on November 5th. Well, it was officially confirmed on November 6th, but I would have wanted to have 44 billion in order to give 10%. 10% of 44 billion is 4 billion. I would have went incognito from the election of Donald Trump till about December 25th, December 24th, about, the holidays. And I would have went to give incognito 44,718 or $50, 50,000 either checks or cash to homeless or whatever people you need. I say, this is your redemption, this is your second chance. You can rent a room for a long time. You can rent a hotel room. You can even pay 2 years or 1 year, of course, full year, an apartment, and this is your second chance. I don't know if you're whatever addictions you have. This is work. I'm encouraging you to work out, train, exercise, and this is your second chance. I would have loved to go across North America to random people across North America. I would have went and I would have just donated. If I would have been a billionaire, because I would have said, well, all the workers of the 20th century enabled millionaires and billionaires. All the workers of the 20th century enabled billionaires and millionaires. All the workers of the 20th century enabled people to do wealth, and money is to do, of course, lots of good, and I'm not totally selfless. I don't make pretense that I'm totally selfless. I have my weirdness and XYZ, but I will to build the for one thing I want to build. Maybe across the U.S.-Canadian border for North American complex unity. The forgotten goddess temple. I laid a foundation with trillions of kisses, some feet washings, washing of the feet, massaging for the construction workers, because I know I like to put more than blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. As an ASPE, that's something that we ASPEs kind of have a tendency towards offering rather than verbal consolation and being neurodivergent. We like to offer more things practical in the practical manner in which we can and if we are able to do in our abilities. And myself, at some things, I am mediocre. I am average, I am so-so, I'm mediocre at some things. I am average, I am so-so, I'm mediocre. I'm average, I am mediocre, and I am so-so at certain things. But at certain other things, I'm quite good at geopolitics, dancing being my favorite sport, and rock and roll. I believe I got some quality rock and roll songs that I create on the daily, and it's open for business 24/7. Financially struggling, but grateful, thankful. My rent's paid, electricity bills paid, got food and coffee, and I gotta give a meditation because it's not all about me. No way that a half an hour passes that I'm not gonna send some LOV to the firefighters. LOV to the butchers, LOV to the truckers on the road across North America, highways, railway conductors, those in the public transit, those in the fast food, making some pizzas, making some hamburgers, making some cheeseburgers, getting that labor, putting those sausages, plumbers, electricians, butchers, bakers, and please reduce the tickets cost of the NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA, National Basketball Association, MLB, reduce the cost, and of course, if I can fight racism, whatever, because sometimes it's subconscious. We're not aware, of our discriminations against fellow citizens of North America. Put on the table some good hugs, some good kisses, and I would have loved to be a billionaire now in these tough economic financial times for many of us, including myself, although got those trillions of kisses, to give some charity. Just I would have went across North America, just give 44,000, 50,000, 50,000 Canadian, 44,718 across Incognito, just to go to do a little bit of redemption, to go across the North American complex and to go give a little bit of that charity. That's what I would have really loved to do as a billionaire. I would have started right after the election of Donald Trump, which was confirmed on the 6th, and I would have went to be my second chance and my own redemption. Because, I don't know about karma, whatever we have, I guess. I paid my dues by the suffering and struggle and scars on my body, scars on my face, scars on my body, scars on my little androgynous tiny clit, dick clit, whatever the case may be, XYZ, still challenging Donald Trump to a boxing match. And I live with my scars, survived being depressed and suicidal. I crossed Canada coast to coast, coast to coast, coast to coast 7 years ago. 7 years ago, I crossed coast to coast 7 years ago, and I crossed across Canada. And of course, that event in my life gotta made me come out of being depressed and suicidal, gotta get out of depression. And I have written a composition, of course, of a theoretical paper called The Initiative for the North American Civilizational Complex in order to mass finance public-private partnership across the collective North American Civilizational Complex, across the North American Civilizational Complex, to finance, of course, citizens to mass visit the hydroelectric dams, mass visit Banff, and of course, calling, of course, the Armed Force Security Force to support implementation of my Trinity or theories, all willingly loving my DRT theory. Paradoxically, at this moment in time, where we are with the public finance, is the only solution at this point in time, where we pay 46.5 billion in interest, 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 46.5 billion on the public debt of Canada. And it's time to get that Confederation Republic coast to coast and implement the operation, Northern Scorpio operation, Northern Scorpio operation, Northern Scorpio operation, Northern Scorpio, something which we gotta conclude. And I've been working on a theoretical paper called, officially, has long titles, because due to Asperger's, HFA, high functioning autism, of course, I tend to have the utilization and the utilizing intellectual, academic, overly verbose linguistics, which do not compromise or are not, of course, adequate at that point in time to explain the concrete solution or the concrete initiative. But to sum it up, is of course the call for a public-private partnership to mass finance citizens across North America to work out, to train, and to exercise, and of course to work out, to train, and to exercise, in parallel to mass visit all across the United States and Canada, which we have a great country here in Quebec, up north, to go up north or east, west, north, south for the wellness. Because that 2017 event in my life, I established back then a strong esprit de corps, a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians. I established a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians. I established a strong esprit de corps, my fellow Canadians, the 44 million, and I'm going to interject something as a Dragon Army, public-private partnership protocol. My brothers and sisters, salutations to those who wear the armed forces of that NORAD, NATO, free world armies. I'm going to say a new protocol. Well, to get that defense, it starts with the daycares and the children in the daycare. So to my brother Bill Blair, citizen, minister, citizen of national defense, I'll say a new protocol got to be implemented. And that new protocol, it should be, before you put on a uniform, worthy to fight in the cause of freedom are not very few of us are really where freedom got to be secured and ensured, but it's got to go change some diapers. That will be the new protocol. Canadian Republican Canadian Army for the Canadian Republican Army, the new Canadian Republican Army, because the king is absent, my brothers and sisters, and we got to get that justice a little bit, and we got to get that North American Democratic Republic, of course, for the North American Collective Union with the creation of the UE. But that will be a new protocol for my U.S. brothers and sisters as well. You're gonna put some defense, armed forces, security forces, armed forces. You gotta have to go change some diapers in the daycares. That would be something. That would be something. Go change some diapers in the daycares before you're allowed to put on the uniform. Just saying, for the 21st century, part of my ongoing 911 protocols for the North American Collective for Security and Defense Initiatives, and of course the initiative which I'm gonna come back to, which I've written back, of course, after I came out of being depressed and suicidal back in 2017. Back in 2017, I've written a composition of element, of course, for the initiation of a protocol for the public-private partnership for mass finance citizens initiative, to see all the cities, all the small farms, the rural farms, the Hydro-Quebec, so much we have. Coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, Almari, Maski, Almari, and we need to defend and establish a strong esprit de corps as I have in 2017 when I was depressed and suicidal. And what got me out of being depressed and suicidal was crossing Canada coast to coast. I met so many people along the road and so many great people and great folks, and I said that gives me hope. And just today, when I went for a little 44-minute walk, a little bit before it started, a little bit of that rain. For this video, I saw people hugging. They hugged like I counted like 45 seconds. So I said, yep. And that has been, is, and will continue to be my message during COVID, as I've died of COVID, being reborn. Nothing that I want to go back to. Hug like you never hugged before with consent. Don't start hugging people in the streets, obviously. But of course, gotta have consent. But, with consent, hug like you never hugged before today. Don't waste time. Just hug like you never hugged before. A whole period of hockey is 20 minutes. You got 3 periods. That football, gridiron, go 49ers, and blah, blah, blah. It's 15 minutes, blah, blah, blah. 15 minutes, blah, blah, blah. Just hug 15 minutes. 4 times, 4 quarters like you never hugged before, and that would be for me. Hug for me as well. If you hear this message, of course, hug like I'm there with you. 2, 3, 100 million. Pledge your allegiance to our family. That is the Rock&Roll 24 since I died of COVID, February, March 20. Pledge your allegiance to our family. Pledge your allegiance to our family. Encouraging all to work out, train, exercise, that public hygiene. And yeah, I get dirty, get back clean, and part of being the LGBTQ community, of course, being myself pansexual, being gay, bi gay, of course, with consent and hygiene. I'm doing friends with benefits only, and I got Asperger's, HFA, so it's friends with benefits only, and being an ASP, it has been difficult to maintain long-term relationships and friends. Being an ASP, it has been long-term relationships and friends, because, of course, long-term relationships and friends due to Asperger's has been quite difficult, but I'm joyous and looking for business, for partnership, pleasure and purpose, partnership, cooperation, business, and gotta get it on the go for the XYZ, for the lovers, for the butchers, for the XYZ, and to do whatever we have to do today as we go on the go. And saluting LOV to the firefighters, LOV to the butchers, LOV to the bakers, because it's not all about fight, and money. You gotta have some LOV. It's not all about fight. Somebody, the youth, are gonna make some loving. And that's worth defending and carrying a weapon for, and being armed, coast to coast defense. We're going to play defense like that hardball ball, the hardball ball, aka the blackout ball. We're going to play that defense. I'm referring to the blackout ball, aka hardball ball. And of course, there was an interruption of the works. And of course, during the mid game, of course, there was the 49ers, my 49ers, which lost. And it was a very defensive game. And of course, defensive game, we got to be on that XYZ. And we're going to learn to play that defense, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. And going to send some LOV again to the firefighters, LOV to the construction workers, butchers, bakers, construction workers. They're the ones who's going to build more social housings and buildings, and build, which yours truly, the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, the North American Imperial Coliseum, the North American Imperial People's Coliseum, the North American People's Coliseum. They're going to go do it, and they're going to go do it on that, and build the Forgotten Goddess Temple, the GODDSS, and we're going to get it on that go with that. And that's what we need to do today. Starting today, we need to get some more of that loving, and I play that defense because I get that hypervigilance, in the public. I got added responsibilities, duties, and obligation, but I've lived my own trauma, survived, of course, being surprised attack in the Montreal Metro a few years ago, and hit my head and had a dislocated shoulder, and have raw retrograde amnesia. I remember moving from a very moldy place and coming here, depressed, suicidal, healed, and cross Canada, coast to coast. I've written the document entitled the Initiative for the Public-Private Partnership Citizen Integrated North American Wellness Initiative via Tourism. The North American, it has a fancy complex title, but of course what it breaks down to, the fancy complex title, is of course that it's a call for the North American civilizational complex, of course, to finance, mass finance citizens fitness, and of course parallel to finance citizens fitness, and of course to parallel to, of course, to do the integration into mass finance tourism across the North American civilizational complex. So the Initiative for the North American civilizational complex, the Initiative for the North American complex via public-private partnership citizen integrated initiative for the wellness of citizens via tourism, the initiation of tourism financing for the mass collective wellness. So it has a long title, but basically breaks down to mass financing citizens to work out, to train, and to exercise, to work out, to train, and to exercise, to work out, to train, and to exercise, and parallel to visit all the cities we have, all the dams, all the farms, to visit North America. It's not all about Wall Street. Let's go Wall Street, mass finance, BNS. This is a great initiative. It has helped me establish a strong esprit de corps 7 years ago when I crossed Canada, coast to coast, and that's what we're gonna get doing with that. And here we are for the mass financing of a collective XYZ, and we're gonna get it together and gonna get that North American Union. And when it gives me hope when I go on the streets and I see people holding hands and hugging and giving some old love, new love, all types of love. That gives me hope, and it's not all about fight. You gotta have some LOV, being a pro-labor, love, universal, revolutionary, centrist, lifting this cup for the forgotten goddess. I do say GODDSS, and I'm a non-sectarian. I can be non-sectarian in my apparatus and my linguistics, and I apply the non-sectarian principle in most of my operation and most of my interaction, but in my way of Asperger's, of course, and with the HFA, it has been, of course, a difficult road to get it on the gold and getting on the gold. And here we are on this underground room of some temple, grateful, thankful, and I am hoping that today, of course, somebody's gonna make some of that good loving, because otherwise, what are we fighting? To save civilization, that west side for, and my brothers and sisters who are black, I make that LOV black, white, and rainbow, make that LOV black, white, and rainbow. If I can put on the table something rather than just words, kisses, to fight racism, and hugs, and play some football. Money I don't have, I'm financially stressed, but I would have loved to give some money. If I would have been a billionaire in this tough economic financial times, ain't no way. I would have been incognito. I would have went and financed. Just random people. I said, this is your second chance. I don't know if you're on whatever addictions you have, whatever problems you live through. How come you got in this situation? This is my redemption, and this is yours. I'm not totally selfless. I got lusts. I got, clumsiness. I suffered. I struggled, blah, blah, blah. I don't make pretense that I don't have lusts and hidden fears, and I love my cake. As a matter of fact, I wanted to get a little bit of piece of cake right now, but I wouldn't be so effing selfish. I would have been a billionaire now. I would have given it to black, white, brown, regardless, and I would have been to those, of course, who are financially struggling. I said, 50,000, this is your second chance. Rent a room for a year. Get off whatever addiction. Start working out. Start taking some sunlight. This is your second chance. And with 44 billion, 10% of 44 billion would have been 4 billion. That means 4 billion would have been divided by so many. It would have been thousands. I would have been able to help thousands, tens of thousands across North America. Would have been able to sell without money. Because what is money? But to buy, sell. So we got to get those kisses on the double. And it's something which I got to myself be mindful of, as of course I am financially stressed, but I am looking for business, and I got to give a shout out to that fellow Aspie who gave me a PayPal of $25.45, 44 cents, $25.44, $25.44. So I accepted that. I haven't received any donations by since then. Of course, it's been already 5 months, but. And I gotta give a shout out to the Aspie World channel YouTube in the past 3.5 years. Since about that time I accepted, because I've been diagnosed independently by several people. Say, you're an Aspie, right? I say, no, I don't think so. I say, 7 years, you're an Aspie, you got HFA, high functioning autism, you're obsessed about certain things, you have a weird eye contact, and you stare at things, and you stare at objects, and you inspect objects closely. You got 93% of the Asperger's, aka high functioning autism spectrum. It's not a disorder, it's not a mental illness, and it's not a disorder. I do not classify it in such a manner whatsoever. It is a neurological mental divergent condition. It's less than 0.44% have it, which makes us Aspies predisposed to obsessive interest. And in those obsessive interests, we really master those, and those take up a precedent of our time, and we're always in some way or another correlating the events in our life with those, whatever it could be. It could be politics for somebody, it could be sports for somebody, it could be of hockey, 9/11, whatever the case may be, certain things about geopolitics, geography, mathematics, spirituality. It could be technology, it could be computers, it could be satellites, it could be whatever the case may be. In case of Hollywood movies, it could be so many different things, and of course we got to get it on the go. But for me, it's geopolitics, the study, the analysis of geopolitical theoretical analysis and theory, and of course geopolitics 24/7, 24/7, of course geopolitics, and of course sports. Dancing is my favorite sport and fitness. I love dancing, 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 and of course part of that is of course also rock and roll, because I do rock and roll 24/7. I create new songs, and I always rock and roll for the truckers on the road. I always rock and roll for the truckers on the road. Those daycare workers, changing some of those diapers. It ain't all about Wall Street, you know what I mean? It ain't all about Wall Street. Sometimes you gotta get that left and right and center. You gotta get some love, and it's not all about fighting. And you know, I get it for the go, get it for the now, for the do, for the do, for the do. For the sunshine, I see you. I see you up in the satellites. You know that you see the night, and the light up in the Crowley. You know that's alright. And the crows, you know they row when I play black and white and rainbow. And the crows, you know they row when I play black and white and rainbow. Hey, hey, you know the crows they row. I like to say my debts are paid, unfold redemption. But gotta play Dragon Spirit. Dragon Spirit, what I lick it. May I be avenged that sevenfold. May I be avenged that sevenfold. Sevenfold times seven. Do the math if you correction. Do correction there. Gotta say for red and black and white rainbow. Gotta say for the go. For the outsmart we go. Gotta play that black and white and rainbow. And we go and hot, hot, hot. And you go to some charity. Got a goddess, you got it. God, goddess. Where the goddess, I got it. They say I ain't got it. I ain't got no money for the guitar, but I sing it anyway, so we got a scar. Yeah, I got that plenty of scar. I play black and white and rainbow. For the sunshine, here we go. For the 11, for the lakes. For the metropolises, for those construction workers. For the cooks baking some cake. For those on the roads they go. For the electricians and the plumbers and those garbage the collectors that are public sanitation. I gotta salute those who are gonna pick up the garbage collectors. There are athletes too. Please, 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 NHL, National Hockey League, NFL, National Football League, MLB, please give across North America. Please give them tickets to those who pick up the garbage every week. You know, they're athletes as well, picking up the garbage, picking up the compost, picking up the recycling. You know, I always thinking about them. And, you know, I would have, of course, if I would have been involved in sports, dancing is my favorite sport. But if I would have been a sports DGA, Dancing Goddess Army, DGA, let's get that sports and fitness that's built on the Canadian-US border workers, the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, where we can have sports 24/7 and have where public workers across North America, the public workers who pick up the garbage, the recycling, can have discount, half a discount. And of course, if you're a garbage collector picking up the garbage, or part of public sanitation, changing the aqueducts and the sewers, and of course doing all that work, the garbage guy would reduce. I say let's reduce the cost of the tickets. NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA, National Basketball Association, MLB. Let's reduce the cost by 50%, and of course, at 50% that will be a cost, of course, which we gotta get it to reduce the cost for 50%, 50%, 50%. That's what I call to the NFL National Football League, NHL National Hockey League to do, NBA National Basketball Association, MLB. That's what I call for them to do to reduce the cost as a concrete action across the North American collective. Please, that's a call of the heart. That would be a great corporate affair, and it takes that public-private partnership and support the DRT, debt refusion. I'm going to sip some coffee. I'm going to discuss geopolitics. Once again, I'm relaunching the Dragon versus Trump. Have been challenging Donald Trump when it started. I haven't taken a position, but since Donald Trump imposed tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel, back then I started challenging Donald Trump in the first administration of Donald Trump to a boxing match on the Canadian-US border in a North American Canadian-US joint built aluminum and steel, Canadian joint built aluminum and steel, Canadian joint built aluminum and steel. That's what I wanted to fight Trump in a boxing match, sportsmanlike boxing match. When about 5 or 6 years ago, he imposed tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel. And you know, this North American Canadian Quebecer who was born 3 times in different lifetimes, different incarnations, sometimes a man and as a woman, but I was born in the USA 3 times. You got to read that George Patton, Through a Glass Darkly. You got to read that George Patton, Through a Glass Darkly. You got to read that George Patton, Through a Glass Darkly. And of course, takes that through a glass clearly, yours truly. But I got to say that George Patton was my wife in a past life. He omitted, he neglected to also mention, because George Patton believed strongly in reincarnations, but George Patton was my wife in a past life in ancient Rome, ancient Egypt. You know, he was my wife as well in ancient Babylon. 3 times George Patton was my wife across a 1,000-year span of life, but he never mentioned in the Through a Glass Darkly poetry. But I was born a man and a woman, and a man and a woman. I was born a man and a woman. You get that 50-50 now. Centrism, pro-labor, North Americans unite. and I got to implement my collective. Of course, about 5 or 6 years ago, I wrote a document calling for the NORAD NATO integration citizen security initiatives in my past collaboration with CSIS, Canadian Security Intelligence Security Service, and of course, part of the North American Collective, of course, somebody who, of course, takes some national security issues kind of seriously. And of course, I predicted back in 2019 what's happening now, and I got proof of work. Back in 2019, I predicted an international conflagration. Back in 2019, I predicted an international conflagration based on several levels of analysis and theoretics, and of course, in a general manner, parallel manner, everything that I've predicted has unfolded according to several levels of analysis. But in a general manner, my predictions back in 2019 have come to fruition, and of course, I realized that before. Of course, I've written a document called, of course, the Citizen Security Integration Protocols for the need of establishing cordial relations, secure, cordial, peaceful relation with non-NATO aligned diasporas, non-NATO. I wrote a document called a few hundred pages. Somewhere I have like 5 different USB keys. I gotta look around because I've written so many documents and theoretics in the past more than 7 years since I kind of moved here, and spent many hours in the libraries and doing research and online. And I've written theoretics, and as a philosopher, I've written about 6 or 7 years ago a document pertaining to, of course, the need for the citizen integration security to have peaceful, cordial reconciliation with non-NATO aligned diasporas, non-NATO member countries, because there's 32 member countries in NATO. Sweden is the last one, and Canada, US, and 20 a few others. Turkey is as well, and Ukraine is not part of NATO. Ukraine is not part of North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the NATO Military Defense Alliance, and Israel is not part of NATO. Israel and Taiwan neither. So there are several other countries, but of course for the NORAD NATO complex, so I wrote a document pertaining to NATO affairs, NATO countries' affairs, of course, maintaining to several levels of international and prognostication, of course, and speculation for the future events, of course, and my protocol detailed, of course, in a general manner, once again, the need for citizen integrated security, of course, protocols that, of course, need to be integrated, established across the NORAD NATO complex in order, of course, to have peaceful resolution with non-NATO aligned member nation diaspora. So basically, those to have cordial relation with diasporas within NATO, who diaspora member citizens of NATO countries who are not NATO aligned, who don't have a NATO alignment, don't have a NATO alignment. So it's a very in-depth analysis. It's a centrist philosophy. It's not right-wing or left-wing. It's a more centrist public partnership based. But NORAD NATO complex. So NORAD stands for Canada US Military Defense, and I'm calling for the initiation of the Dragon Army Public-Private Partnership Protocol, part of my dream. My dream is fundamentally a call for a public-private partnership, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom. The dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom is part of my ongoing, of course, general overall here from Hawk Island, Montreal Metropolis, of course, for world peace in a world peace context, and of course to reconciliation across the world in a peaceful manner, and for more need for public-private partnership for the environment, and of course for the peaceful resolution of conflicts. As of course many conflicts are now spilling over, and of course maybe we're going to see some more international conflagration, as I had predicted it back in 2019. Once again, I repeat, as I'm about to drink this coffee, and somebody going to make some LOV tonight. I saw somebody hugging good, like with consent, hug like you never hugged before. That's the main message. With consent, hug like you never hugged before is the main message. With consent, hug like you never hugged before is the main message. And I encourage you all to work out, train, exercise. And I'm going to switch it a little bit to that French because we're in La Belle Province. But before I do, I just want to say a little bit about the Donald Trump selection. I'm going to analyze a little bit of the protocols and implementation of some theories. So I would have definitely voted Kamala. I would have voted Kamala. And of course, I'm hoping that there's going to be some peaceful reconciliation and to change the course. To call it a heart, I'm really, really calling all the leaders to support the North American readers. My dream, the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, for a public-private partnership. I believe public-private partnerships for the 21st century, and of course gratitude and building the forgotten goddess temple and the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, the North American Imperial People's Coliseum. That's what I want to build, the North American Imperial Coliseum, That's what I will to build on the Canadian border. And of course I need the help of the construction workers, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the grocery store clerks, and all involved in the production and the distribution of food across the North American civilizational complex, and that's what we need to be doing on that today. And of course, something which I am willingly loving to put a lot of kisses, a lot of hugs, a lot of working and progress, and a lot of course, whatever the need may be, massages with that, and rock and roll to build the forgotten goddess temple. First thing, goddess. G.O.D.D. says the forgotten goddess temple, the North American Civilizational Collective, the North American Civilizational Collective Complex, and we got to get it on the go for the XYZ, and that's what we got to go doing for the XYZ today, as I live carpe diem every day, carpe diem, in the sense that, of course, I do have a hope for the future. I do have lots of hope. My youth, when I see the youth joyous, say that's what matters, because the youth are innocent. My car, my yoke, I suffered, I struggled, whatever the case may be, and depressed, but the youth gives me joy, and I have a lot of hope for the North American youth, for the collective North American youth, and they give me a lot of hope and joy. And they're innocent. The youth are innocent, right? They're innocent. Us, we got XYZ, we got our gossips, we got our little resentments, we got our little egos, we got our little whatever the case may be, technical hacking knowledge of computers and radio, telecommunication, websites. Don't hack the sun too much, and don't get too much to my king, the Pope, the sun, like Papa Crowley said, because he's gonna send us some solar flares, and hopefully no solar flares. Then it's gonna be all telecommunications, satellites, and radios. It's gonna be poof. It's gonna be poof poof. Anyways, the pyramids remain as the sun remain as, whatever the case may be. I'm gonna discuss some other mystic affairs in the coming days in the full moon, but I will to build the forgotten goddess temple. If somebody, I want to build the forgotten goddess temple in the North American Imperial People's Coliseum, and the North American Imperial Coliseum, the North American Imperial Coliseum, the North American Imperial People's Coliseum, for the public-private partnership to have activities such as dancing and fitness 24/7 on the Canadian-US border, and of course to have the NFL. And I will, if I would have been a millionaire, I really would have loved, I would have bought hundreds and hundreds of the PWHL, Professional Women's Hockey League. They have a new shirt. I can't afford it right now. I checked. It was like not that expensive. It was like $100, $135 Canadian for the Victoire Go Women's Sports Go. They don't make as close as the men, but I would have definitely financed. If I would have been a billionaire, I would have given, of course, to the PVHL. If I would have had 44 billion, I would have given $1 billion. I would have definitely given $1 billion to women's sports leagues. PVHL, if I would have had 44 billion, I would have taken 10%. I would have given 10% to people who need it, and I would have added a 1%, so that would have been hundreds of millions to the Professional Women's Hockey League, and I would have bought some shirts, some of those Victoire shirts, and I would have distributed them, freely the holiday season. I would have distributed on the 23rd, 22nd of December for the holiday season. I would have just given across Montreal, because it's a Montreal team, of course, and it's part of the new six, the PVHL, Professional Women's Hockey League. If I would have been a millionaire, let's go Celine Dion. Celine, I'm willing to volunteer. You finance Pelado. Let's finance the trucks, and we did those Victoire, we get those jerseys, and I'm going to distribute them to the youth across Montreal. So if you're able to finance that, I'm willing to volunteer. A whole weekend, I'll volunteer just to put in the muscle to distribute them to people who want it, and I'll volunteer doing that. But somebody has to put the financing, that's his money, and that's something which I would have loved to do. Victoire, that would have been nice. And I have a new shirts, and that's my next purchase, because I got my 49ers hat, I got 49ers, I got the Habs hat, I got the NBA hat, I got that, and of course I got sports. But if my next sports purchase is definitely going to be the women's sports leagues. PVHL, the Victoire. That's what I'm going to buy next, as a sports league for the women's hockey, because they're great, and I watch and I really enjoy all sorts of sports. Dancing is my favorite sport. I can dance, and get that priestess of the goddess, and I can dance for hours. And I love geopolitics, and that's it. That's all rock and roll. We're going to get it for the XYZ, and we're going to get it for the XYZ. And saluting the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the grocery store clerks, all those involved in the production of the distribution of food, and all those across the collective North American civilizational complex. We gotta get it for the XYZ, and somebody's gonna make some love. Who's gonna win tonight? I don't know, but I do know that the youth give me some hope, and it's hope the youth of course are innocent, and of course we gotta play that defense like that hardball ball. My initiatives protocols are of course only for defense, for the North American civilizational protocol across the North American civilizational states. And although that it is of course today, carpe diem it every day, and it gives me a lot of hope, of course, that somebody hugged today when I went on the march. Somebody hugged good, and that's a little bit of the hope. So hug like you never hugged before with consent. Firefighters, LOV, the firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, LOV, those who pick up the garbage collectors, putting up some muscles, putting up the brains, the public sanitation workers, the nurses, those in the daycares changing diapers, those across North America changing some, of course, those of that food, preparing the food preparation across the fast food, breaking up some of those fast food so we can eat and have nurture ourselves. And in all the restaurants, LOV, respect to the fast food workers, they're great. I wouldn't last an hour a day. I'm saying that I always admire that type of labor. And the warehouse workers, Canada Post, Hydro-Quebec workers, LOV, sending some love, of course, to those dock workers, putting up some muscles, the construction workers, build. Of course, we need to build more hydroelectric dams and construction workers, and build the North American Citizen Integrated, of course, complex, and of course the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, the Forgotten Goddess Temple. And with my tiny feet, tiny hands, tiny little rainbow, and of course I got a little bit of rock and roll, but I can do some labor, put in some muscle and some love. Kisses I got by the trains, and I love that dancing, and I'm gonna play that defense. And I would defend, of course, my fellow Canadians if there's ever an invasion, but strictly, merely, and only and solely for defense for the North American civilizational complex. So to be understood that my protocols initiatives are strictly and foremost for the North American civilizational defense, of course, for the complex of the North American civilizational collective defense across the collective North American complex. LOV, make love, make LOV with consent, make love, and encourage all the workout training exercise. And please, millionaires, give, start giving the holiday season. Give 10% to charity. Don't be so selfish. Money is to buy, sell, support the creation of the DRT, the Debt Refusion TV, the Universal Exchange Unit, the Universal Exchange Unit. We gotta create that UE by taking all the public and the private debt, and we gotta take it all the public and the private debt and refuse it on the go. So take all the public and the private debt, that's my DRT, and create a new currency based on the value of the money of the United States dollar. So take all the debt, the public and the private debt, and that's what we're gonna get doing the collection of the public debt across North America, and all that money we're gonna create a new currency, of course, called the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit, the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit, U dot Universal Exchange Unit, U dot Universal E dot Exchange Unit, the UE, U dot Universal E dot Exchange Unit, the Universal Exchange Unit. We gotta get going for the creation of the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit, for the creation of the UE by the implementation of my theory known as the financial theory, the DRT, debt refusion theory, which of course is also has and includes in it the financial monetary theory known as the financial integration theory or monetary integration theory, which is exactly the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union, the financial theory which was implemented known as of course the financial monetary integration theory by the creation of the euro and the destruction of their own central banks and the creation of the ECB, the European Central Bank. That's what the Europeans did. So my DRT, debt refusion theory, includes that theory for the North American complex, but in a different manner by taking all the public-private debt, and we're going to refuse, and all that public-private debt is going to be the initial money supply of this new currency which is going to have the value of the United States dollar. So my theory, the DRT, the debt refusion theory for the creation of the UE, is the only solution where we are now. That's the only solution. You can argue all you want, left and right, but the DRT theory, my debt refusion theory, is the only solution for the monetary integration theory for the creation of the UE. There's no other solution now where we are at this point in time. For that is the only solution. That's a paradox because as an aspect theoretical financial theorist and philosopher, of course, I'm able to present on the table a financial theory that's going to save and implement, of course, the salvation of the public structures, the DRT, because, of course, in 2021, we paid 20.3 billion in interest, 20.3 billion in interest, 20.3 billion in interest. 3 years later, due to COVID, of course, and I had survived COVID myself. I thought I was gonna die right here. I died right here in this dragon's lair. I'm being reborn. Nothing that I want to go back to. I just will to build the Forgotten Goddess Temple, implement the DRT, and support the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon King. I got trillions of kisses with it, and some rock and roll, and of course to create the UE. The UE by taking all the private and the public debt and converting it to the US dollar's value, and of course create the universal exchange, then put an interest rate level of 10% after, 10% after of the interest rate, of course, 10% thereafter. of the interest rate, 10% thereafter of the interest rate. That's what we're going to do. And with all that money, we're going to be able to build more hydroelectric dams. We're going to be able to finance the mass financing of citizens to work out, to train, and to exercise the mass finance of financial theorems of protocols across the North American collective. We're going to be able to mass finance tourism. We're going to be able to rebuild the infrastructure of North America. That's the financial theory known as the DRT. There's no other solution now. You can argue all you want, left, right, and center, but due to the fact that we pay now 46.5 billion in interest on the public debt servicing has reached 46.5 billion. That's 46,000 million. It's not sustainable. You're about to not be able to pay the firefighters, the public workers, public sanitation. Next year, 2025 is about to collapse. The DRT is the only solution. Debt R refusion T for theory, the debt refusion theory. There's no other solution. You can argue all you want, brothers and sisters. There's no other solution but the DRT. That's why I'm calling on CSIS, all members in public and private partnership, to implement my theory across the North American Canadian Republic and the Canadian across Canada first and foremost, and even Canada, US, to do like in the European Union, the North American Collective, to create the universal exchange unit, the universal exchange, the universal exchange unit, the universal exchange unit for the creation of the UE, the universal exchange, and that's what we're gonna need to create. And of course, we gotta get it, that creation ASAP. It starts with me, with you, right here, right now, in this underground room of some temple in Hawk Island. The solution is the DRT, the debt refusion to the debt refusion to the debt refusion to for the creation of the UE. That's it. Salute, salutation. The paradox on the table. I'm able to put on this new table. Thank you for the donation of the table. I need to fix it before the full moon comes on. The next weekend is the full moon, so it's 3 days of the full moon. So I'm gonna paint it this week and do some cleaning, and I gotta wash my rainbow dragon flag with the flag of the dragon again, and I gotta get going. And yours truly, Dragon versus Trump, supported a little bit of that French now, a little bit of that French, because where we are, we in La Belle Province. So welcome to the layers of the dragon. Gonna switch to that French. So you know, up in the French, up in the lane, we switching lane. Gotta get it like Celine. Celine switch it to that English. Celine switch it to that French. And we know we're just gonna sing it. Rock and roll, you know we please it for that French and English. And this is the great compromise, what I call the great North American linguistic compromise, which we made during decades to have continuing and maintaining peace and harmony, to have the maintenance of the French language. 10 million Quebecers, of course, here in Quebec, and you know that's what we keep doing. The compromise, what I call the great linguistic compromise, which we've made of the French language, and I'm gonna put some work into it right now for the North American Collective, and of course the great, my brothers and sisters who are blacks, of course, 13.3, 13.4, my neighbors included, you know, my neighbors included. And if I can fight racism with anything, because sometimes we have subconscious things which we have against other people, which we're sometimes it's hard to admit or to know, because we feel sometimes weird or we feel certain ways, and you have to dissect the subconscious. So open hugs, and kisses, you know, that's how I'm gonna fight. And we gotta learn to get some loving and share. Please give business, don't be so selfish, and you gotta get that LOV. Butchers and bakers and nurses and doctors and truckers and nurses and doctors and truckers and butchers and bakers and nurses and doctors and truckers. Truckers and nurses and butchers and plumbers and doctors and nurses and doctors and truckers. Truckers and plumbers and butchers and bakers and nurses, electricians, plumbers, carpenters. Switch to French. Bienvenue dans la grotte du dragon arc-en-ciel. On est dimanche. L'élection de Donald Trump, ça était venu comme une surprise. Puis votre artiste athlète indépendant qui n'est pas parfait, loin de là, qui joue en arc-en-ciel. Une chanson qu'on commence de dimanche. C'est dimanche, je vais pas à la messe. La messe, c'est la comédie. Et le pape, je lave des pieds sans gêne, arc-en-ciel. Et je fais de la comédie en rock-and-roll, en maudit béni. Que vous buvez de la maudite, c'est de la bière de la belle province. Puis les camionneurs qu'on avance, les travailleurs de Québec. Quelqu'un faut qu'ils disent amour aux pompiers. Votre aspect artiste en arc-en-ciel. Je suis pas parfait, loin de l'être, mais je chante en bon. J'ai du café, ma gratitude. Côte à côte de l'Ouest de la belle province, des montagnes des 17 régions. Hey, c'est un en latin qu'il faut. En latin, la Concordia, c'est le mot l'amour. De l'île de Montréal, eh bien, il faut faire des coups de tonnerre, quelqu'un qui fait l'amour, et ça joue de la guitare, puis les enfants dansent. Ça danse même les aînés dans les discothèques. Pas de discothèque, c'est sur le Mont-Royal qu'on aime sans gêne, puis l'entouré. La métropole sur les gratte-ciels, ça avance le haut de la pyramide. En haut de la pyramide, je fais un bilingue comme Céline. De là haut de la pyramide, je chante puis je vous danse comme Céline. La danse, c'est mon sport préféré. Québécois, je vous envoie de l'amour. Puis aujourd'hui, ce dimanche, une petite comédie, la philosophie de votre artiste aspire. Puis encore une fois, l'Asperger, vous savez, c'est pas une condition de maladie mentale, c'est une condition de neurodivergence. Ça fait que j'ai moi-même certaines conditions que je dois faire, bien sûr, la gestion de mes symptômes parce que à cause de cette condition de neurodivergence, j'ai bien sûr mes intérêts obsessifs, la géopolitique, puis je dois dire, avant que je continue, que j'ai prévu la situation actuelle en 2019. J'ai fait une prédiction basée sur mes analyses, d'un point de vue généralement parlant. J'ai prévu la situation qui se déroule en ce moment en 2019. Cette prévision que j'avais faite, c'était en 2019, puis j'avais prévu une conflagration internationale, puis bien sûr, mes théories puis mes protocoles sont pour la défense du collectif de civilisation nord-américain, dont en Amérique du Nord, en fait, le grand compromis de la langue du français, le grand compromis linguistique en tant que philosophe que j'appelle bien sûr le grand compromis linguistique. Puis, bien sûr, on continue de le faire. Aujourd'hui, je viens de voir des gens qui se sont donné des câlins, ça m'a donné de l'espoir. Je dis, wow, ils se donnent un bon... Il donne un bon câlin, fait que j'ai été toujours de mon humeur, puis je suis quelqu'un qui a souffert beaucoup, j'ai beaucoup de cicatrices, puis j'ai été en dépression suicidaire, puis là, 7 ans, en 2007, j'ai traversé le Canada de côte à côte, puis cet événement dans ma vie, ça m'a fait propulser, puis j'ai commencé à avoir un gros, fort esprit de corps avec le Québec, le Canada, mais en 2017, j'ai traversé le Canada, fait que je dis, waouh, j'ai eu comme un réveil, j'ai dit tellement de choses à faire, à voir au Canada que j'ai pas vu, c'est tellement de provinces, un gros pays, des choses à voir, d'une beauté exceptionnelle. Waouh, j'ai fait, j'ai arrêté d'être en dépression puis suicidaire, puis ça m'a fait un réveil. J'ai commencé à m'entraîner physiquement. J'ai perdu comme entre 80 et 93 livres, puis j'ai survécu la COVID en février-mars 2020. J'ai accepté mon Asperger's, mon neurodivergence, puis bien sûr, j'ai souffert à cause de ça. L'Asperger's, c'est pas une condition de maladie mentale, c'est une condition de neurodivergence. Ça fait juste que j'ai des intérêts obsessifs, puis ces intérêts obsessifs, ça préoccupe la plupart de mon temps. Même des fois, quand je suis dehors, je fais des méditations géopolitiques, je mets des choses comme la nourriture, les camionneurs, les autoroutes, l'infrastructure, dans un contexte de la géopolitique. Parce que la géopolitique, c'est aussi de la défense des intérêts nationaux, puis moi-même, Québécois, Canadien, Nord-Américain, pour le complexe Nord-Américain, puis mon rêve, le rêve de votre dragon arc-en-ciel philosophe, qui est fondamentalement un appel à un partenariat public-privé. C'est fondamentalement un appel à un partenariat public-privé pour le collectif de civilisation de l'Amérique du Nord, pour qu'est-ce que j'appelle le grand complexe de civilisation de l'Amérique du Nord, dont le Québec, on fait partie, le Canada, puis bien sûr, ben, le roi est absent, je ne suis pas sentimental du roi, c'est le temps qu'on fasse une république, parce que, puis faire l'implémentation de ma TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, parce qu'on est rendu à payer 46,5 milliards d'intérêts sur la dette publique, ça a plus que doublé depuis 3 ans, ça a plus que doublé, le double qu'on payait en 2020-2021, on payait 20,3 milliards, 20,3 fois 2, c'est 40,6, c'est rendu 46,5. Ah, 46,5. Fait que c'est des choses que moi-même, c'est un paradoxe que je vous présente sur la table, là, cette solution, mais c'est la solution. Il n'y a pas d'autre solution en ce moment que la TRD pour la refusion de la dette puis la création d'une nouvelle monnaie d'échange. Puis ma théorie de la refusion de la dette, il faut tenir compte que ça contient dans d'elle la théorie d'intégration monétaire, ce qui est exactement qu'est-ce qu'ils ont fait en Europe. En Europe. C'est ça qu'ils ont fait en Europe, les Européens. Ils ont fait, of course, l'implémentation d'une théorie financière qui s'appelle la théorie d'intégration monétaire. Et ma théorie, ça inclut cette théorie. La théorie, ça inclut cette théorie. C'est ça qu'il faut tenir compte. Puis tenir compte, c'est un paradoxe parce que quand on étudie la géopolitique, puis en étant moi-même un analyste et théoricien en géopolitique indépendant, c'est 24/24 la géopolitique chez nous. C'est 24/24 l'analyse de la théorie des nouvelles, l'analyse, la réanalyse, puis la révision des événements. Puis aujourd'hui, principalement cette semaine, puis demain, ça va être bien sûr Donald Trump. C'était une surprise, mais c'est Donald Trump. Hier, c'était bien sûr le mur de Berlin. C'était un événement géopolitique majeur. Le mur de Berlin. Tu sais, je peux en discuter pendant des heures de la géopolitique. C'est ça que je suis, un analyste et théoricien en géopolitique indépendant. Parallèlement, un artiste, un athlète, un philosophe, un mystique. Un arc-en-ciel avec beaucoup de défauts, beaucoup de cicatrices, beaucoup de souffrances. Mais aujourd'hui, je suis joyeux, je suis jovial, je peux me permettre. J'ai payé mon loyer. J'ai payé ma facture d'électricité, j'ai du café, j'ai du thé, puis je peux m'entraîner, puis je dois faire le nettoyage demain, puis je peux faire mon lavage, puis j'ai beaucoup d'amour, des bisous. Je vais souvent en montagne, le Mont-Royal, puis je salue les boulangers. Dans les boulangeries, les charpentiers, les travailleurs de Québec et du passé qui ont bâti les centrales. La civilisation, c'est un privilège, juste avoir l'électricité. Là. Imaginez-vous tout le travail qui a été fait pour avoir l'électricité au 20e siècle, là. Bâtir toutes les centrales qui ont été bâties, puis tout ça, pour le faire ça. Là. Ça a été tellement de travail, puis le travail continue de bâtir les aqueducs pour avoir de l'eau potable, tout ça. C'est un privilège, la civilisation. C'est des choses qu'on prend pour acquis, mais des fois, en faisant des méditations, c'est quelque chose qu'il faut mettre, parce qu'il faut mettre en valeur qu'est-ce qu'on a pour la défense, puis bien sûr, ça prend la vieille école, puis la nouvelle école. On ne peut pas se baser tout sur des choses nouvelles, ça apprend un peu de la vieille école. Le rock-and-roll, je fais peut-être un peu de rock-and-roll, puis un peu d'amour, mais je ne suis pas parfait loin de là, puis à cause de mes souffrances, puis des troubles que j'ai vécus, quand je vais dans le public, des fois, je suis hyper vigilant, j'ai une hyper vigilance vis-à-vis certains trompes, événements dans ma vie, de m'avoir fait attaquer par surprise dans le métro, puis avoir tombé, on se cogné la tête, puis mon bras a été disloqué, j'étais allé à l'hôpital, puis j'ai eu mon propre épisode de pirate silicien, mais je suis jovial, mais j'aime pas la violence, j'aime pas la violence, mais j'aime l'entraînement physique, la danse, le sport, le rock'n'roll, j'aime voir le monde qui s'aime, puis j'aime faire l'entraînement physique, puis j'ai l'espoir pour l'Amérique du Nord, au moins d'en connaître au point rendu en géopolitique. C'est possible qu'on ait même une guerre nucléaire, là. C'est possible, c'est des choses qui sont jamais arrivées auparavant, puis on a quand même des guerres et des conflits qui n'ont pas été résolus du 20e siècle dans d'autres régions des civilisations à travers le monde, à travers ici en Amérique du Nord, dans le complexe de l'Amérique du Nord, mais on a fait des grands compromis pour la continuité de la paix. Un de ces grands compromis, c'est le français. On donne, des fois on met des lois, puis tout ça, on met ça à la table du monde, puis moi je dis, ben, par la culture, par le rock'n'roll, faisons ensemble. Le troisième film, je peux jouer un petit 5 minutes dans le film, puis en chantant du rock'n'roll bilingue, dans le Bad Cop, Bad Cop 3, 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 je peux jouer quand même dans un petit rôle pour en faire de danse, puis de la danse, puis du rock'n'roll dans ce troisième. Ça serait un grand compromis qu'on a fait avec l'anglais et le français, on continue de le faire. C'est pas quand même parfait, on a des tensions et tout ça, mais quand même, on a continué d'avoir la paix, puis la continuité de la paix sans avoir de conflit régional. Puis avec l'élection de Trump, j'espère qu'on va avoir quand même Donald Trump des choses qui vont changer. Je fais appel à tous et toutes à soutenir mon rêve, qui est fondamentalement un appel à un partenariat public-privé, puis je veux construire le temple de la déesse oubliée, puis je crédite des milliards de bisous, crédite des milliards de bisous, crédite des milliards de bisous avec des chatouilles, puis des lavages de pieds, puis toutes des bonnes choses par action. Travailler dans la construction que j'admets quand je vois sur les grues. J'ai un petit fétiche pour les grues. Quand je les vois, je médite toujours sur les grues. Puis les travailleurs en construction, ben, c'est eux autres qui vont bâtir aussi le complexe le Colisée du peuple américain du Nord intégré. Là. Un Colisée sur la frontière Canada-États-Unis. Je veux bâtir un Colisée pour le sport du 20e siècle, pour avoir un sport intégré, puis des événements de sport. Un gros Colisée, genre, un gros aréna Colisée comme à l'ancien Rome, un gros Colisée sur la frontière de l'Amérique du Nord, qui s'appelle, of course, le Colisée impérial de l'Amérique du Nord. Le Colisée du peuple nord-américain impérial, le Colisée impérial du peuple nord-américain, le Colisée impérial du peuple nord-américain, le Colisée impérial du peuple nord-américain, peut-être Dragon Trump. Bless. Et bien sûr, je ne suis pas parfait loin de là, mais ça me donne l'espoir quand je vois du monde s'entraîner, puis du monde jovial, puis les jeunes, la jeunesse, ben, sont innocents, la jeunesse, sont innocents, puis j'ai de l'espoir quand je vois qu'est-ce qui se passe dans le monde, des fois, bien sûr, avec mes théories que j'avais prévues, je dois me dire que je marque 5 ans, depuis que j'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe en 2019, j'ai la preuve pour ça, parce que, bien sûr, j'ai fait des analyses indépendantes, tellement des analyses indépendantes, puis en 2019, je suis rendu à la conclusion que l'humanité se dirige encore vers une conflagration internationale. Fait que c'est ça que j'ai fait. J'ai créé mon propre système d'entraînement physique qui ne requiert aucun équipement, qui est simple, facile, puis qui entraîne d'une façon générale le corps, qui est quand même un bon entraînement physique symétrique, que j'ai créé basé sur plusieurs savoirs, pas tout un expert en santé physique, puis pas en étant expert, bien sûr, de l'entraînement du conditionnement physique, mais quelqu'un qui aime le sport puis la danse, puis avec mes propres, of course, mes connaissances, j'ai créé un entraînement physique qui ne requiert aucun équipement, puis bien sûr, j'ai fait moi-même la performance de 372, plus que 372 sessions de cet entraînement physique que j'ai créé moi-même en 2019, puis j'avais prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe en 2019. J'ai prévu la situation actuelle qui se déroule d'une manière généralement parlant, pas à chaque détail par détail, mais d'une manière générale. Puis je peux faire un résumé que j'avais prévu, j'ai dit, vu que les régions, civilisations, d'autres régions et civilisations n'ont pas été capables de régler leurs problèmes d'une manière pacifique. Leurs problèmes et conflits qui datent du 20e siècle. Ils n'ont pas été capables de les résoudre. Un conflit de l'Ukraine et la Russie, c'est un conflit qui date du 20e siècle, de la guerre froide. Au Moyen-Orient, pareillement. Bien sûr, la Chine puis la Taïwan, un potentiel nouveau conflit qui peut s'arriver à soir. La Chine peut faire l'invasion du Taïwan ce soir, c'est possible. Ils ont fait de l'encerclement, puis ils ont fait une alliance forte militaire avec la Russie. Ben c'est ça, c'est la géopolitique 24/24 avec moi. J'ai l'Asperger's, fait que c'est ça qui mon intérêt obsessif, hein, c'est la géopolitique. Fait que je peux en parler pendant des heures, je peux faire des analyses, mais ça reste que je suis québécois, canadien, nord-américain. Mes protocoles législatifs sont fondamentalement pour la sécurité, la défense, puis la renaissance, puis la rebâtir l'infrastructure de l'Amérique du Nord. Parce que je ne connais pas vraiment, j'ai pas vécu, tu sais, ailleurs pour dire en Russie, en Ukraine, au Moyen-Orient, en Taïwan, j'ai pas vécu. J'ai vécu ici sur le Mont-Royal. C'est à Montréal, bien sûr. Je suis mort là 5 ans au Mont-Royal. J'ai vécu en dépression puis suicidaire. C'est ici que j'ai traversé le Canada de côte à côte. Puis je suis sur l'île de Montréal. Ben, c'est ma renaissance. C'est ma renaissance. Je suis mort sur l'île de Montréal il y a une couple d'années. Puis je suis rené sur l'île de Montréal. La métropole de 2,5 millions, ben, c'est quand même quelque chose. Fait que même si je connais les civilisations, les théories, puis la philosophie de Vladimir Poutine, puis de Xi Jinping, le communisme, puis le socialisme, ça reste que mon rêve, c'est fondamentalement pour le collectif nord-américain, pour l'Amérique du Nord, parce que je suis fondamentalement un Québécois, Canadien, nord-américain, même si j'ai l'espoir pour la paix mondiale, puis je peux me prononcer sur des affaires, ça reste que je suis Québécois, Canadien, nord-américain. Personnellement, je ne me considère pas un membre d'une diaspora, personnellement, quand c'est chez nous ici, je ne me considère pas un membre d'une diaspora, puis j'accueille tout le monde qui vienne pour venir nous rejoindre au Québec, en Amérique du Nord, de tout mon cœur, pour les faire comme mes frères et sœurs qui viennent nous rejoindre, tu sais, puis les traiter d'une manière égale, puis avec le racisme, ben, des fois c'est dans le subconscient moi-même, c'est possible que j'ai dans le subconscient, certaines discriminations moi-même, comme moi-même avec l'Asperger, je l'ai vécu moi-même, tu sais, en étant une minorité de moins d'1 sur 300%, moins de 1%, moins de 0,44%, même pas la moitié d'un pourcentage ont l'Asperger comme moi-même. Donc, c'est des choses du subconscient des fois, mais j'y travaille, j'offre des câlins, des bisous, des chatouilles, puis sur la table, j'ai pas d'argent à offrir des affaires, mais je suis prêt à faire des alliances, puis faire affaire pour la défense, puis la renaissance de l'Amérique du Nord, mais fondamentalement, c'est pour l'Amérique du Nord mon rêve qui se manifeste comme le royaume de la déesse et du dragon qui danse, qui est fondamentalement un appel à un partenariat public basé sur mes initiatives. Ma théorie de la refusion de la dette, c'est la seule et unique théorie. La TRD pour la création de l'UI. En anglais, c'est pareil. U.unité, E.échange, U.universel. UI. Basé sur la valeur des États-Unis en mettant un point final sur le point d'intérêt de 10%, on doit créer cette monnaie, l'UI, parce qu'on paye 46,5 milliards, ça a plus que doublé en 3 ans. Le montant d'intérêt, seulement l'intérêt qu'on paye sur la dette publique. On ne sera plus capable de payer les pompiers, les services publics, le ramassage des poubelles, là, à travers le Canada. Les services publics, ça prend un partenariat public-privé, ça prend l'implémentation de ma TRD. C'est la seule unique. C'est un paradoxe. Je vous présente une solution. La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. Le roi est absent. Le roi est absent, mes chers. C'est le temps pour la République canadienne. C'est le temps pour la République canadienne. C'est le temps de faire plus l'amour, puis bien sûr, prendre de côte à côte, puis la réconciliation entre l'Amérique du Nord, puis je vous laisse avec amour une chanson. Il faut... Ah oui, je m'en viens. Il faut que j'aille faire la cuisine, I gotta go cook.